thank you everybody for joining us on this 3 nights before Pesach Zoom meeting. We've done pretty well through this season to be able to keep the community connected together through the wacky world of the pandemic. And it's very important for us to do this every few weeks to be able to keep the community together like we did in the olden days with the Friday Night Live, if you remember how much fun that was. So now we do the windows to the world. And if you ask why we're doing this just 3 days before Pesach, it is a really weird time. I was running around today with my massive blowtorch. It's like 6 feet long, and a rabbi, not the kind of thing that the rabbi likes to do so much. But before Pesach, a rabbi's got to do what a rabbi's got to do. I was blowtorching my kitchen and got to get to the shul kitchen a little bit later. It's a little bit intense. You know, when the Gentiles see a rabbi walking around with a blowtorch, they get all sorts of wacky ideas. Got to be careful with who gets to see us. The reason we're having the Zoom tonight is because tonight is a very, very special occasion. Today is the birthday of our beloved Rebbe, who was born in Nikolaev in 1902. That's 120 years ago, right? 119 years ago. And we still say the Rebbe's chapter of Tehillim every single day, corresponding to his birthday. So we just finished the longest chapter of Tehillim, 119. We've said it all year long. And now we're up to chapter 120, which is a shorter chapter. So I want to toast L'chaim to our Rebbe, to a Jew who literally changed the face of Judaism with his inspiration and his teachings and his emissaries, his shluchim from all over the world. So L'chaim to our Rebbe.
L'chaim.
And as you know, in our community, we want you to know that it's not just Chan and I, Levo and Sarah, that are the shluchim. We want you to know that you're the shluchim as well. I look at Asher Russo, who's been bringing matzahs all over the place, and Old Palm and Elaine and Stephanie have bring matzahs and Purim packages all over, and Ibis and everybody else that's been doing amazing stuff to be able to share the light and spread the love. We all are shluchim. It's like a tidal wave of love and goodness and kindness that has started from the Rebbe and spread without limit, ad infinitum. And as we do this, I want you to realize that we are all shluchim, but we have got it real easy. We live in Palm Beach, Florida, which is one of the most prosperous cities in the world. Not so in Rostov on Don, Russia. From what I understand, Rostov is not exactly New York City, Palm Beach, or Chicago. It is not an easy place to raise your family and to raise your children in. But my yeshiva chavrusa, my yeshiva partner, is Rabbi Chaim Danzinger, who I had the extraordinary privilege of studying together with him in Kfar Chabad, Israel. I got to know Chaim. He's a very funny but deep personality. And it's amazing to me that Chaim has been able to run the community of Rostov, Russia. He's actually the chief rabbi of the southeastern region of Russia. And it is a distinct privilege and honor to have him joining us here tonight for the Zoom presentation, where I do want to point out the time in Russia is around 3:30 a.m. right now. So Chaim, thank you so much for taking the effort and the time to wake up super early, or maybe you haven't gone to sleep yet, I don't know. But I'm so grateful to have you with us. And Chaim, to you, I want to toast a very special L'chaim to you, Chaim. L'chaim to Chaim for being an inspiration to all of us. We're very excited to have you with us. Just one quick thing I want to say about Pesach as I welcome Chaim to the stage is that, you know, as we come to Pesach, one of the main plagues of Passover was the frogs, right? So I remember when Chaim and I were students in the yeshiva in Kfar Chabad.
1 second.
Chaim, I don't know if you remember, we were students in the yeshiva in Kfar Chabad, Israel, and Rabbi Lezer Tzeitlin came to Farbreng with us young yeshiva students, Rabbi Lezer Tzeitlin of Tzfas. And as he came to the yeshiva, he told us a story about the frogs of Egypt, the Pharaoh's frogs that came to inflict the plagues upon Egypt. What happened was that the frogs, they were on a kamikaze mission. They knew they were going to die, but they went in every nook and cranny of Egypt. But Rabbi Tzeitlin pointed out to us that not all the frogs were equal. Some frogs went straight into the ovens, and other frogs went into Pharaoh's very cozy and comfortable bed. It wasn't the same for everybody. Some frogs lived, they fulfilled their mission through great comfort in the royal palace, and others fulfilled their mission through great discomfort by jumping straight into the ovens. So Rabbi Vigler was explaining to us that even when you go out in shlichus, even when you go out to be the emissaries of the Rebbe, there are those that have it nice and easy and those that have it really difficult. So if you're going to go to a place like Vietnam or Vladivostok in Russia, where there's no running water and there's outhouses for bathrooms, that would be like the frogs that are going straight into the ovens. And then you got the people that are going to Palm Beach, to Chicago, to New York City, places that are civilized, developed, and advanced. And we also are doing the work of the Rebbe, but nowhere near to the way that it's being done in a place like Rostov. I personally am deeply inspired to have my colleague, my friend, my partner, all the way back from Yeshiva, Rabbi Chaim Danzinger. Rabbi Chaim, are you there? Rabbi Chaim, are you there?
Do you see me? Do you hear me?
We hear you, Chaim. We hear you. We don't see you. We see the picture of your beautiful shul. There you are. Now we got you. L'chaim, Chaim.
Okay. So, l'chaim. It's a big pleasure being here. It's l'chaim at 2:42 a.m. I haven't done that before, but there's always a first. So, l'chaim. It's a big pleasure being here. And it's a big zchus to be on this special day, on this special occasion, the 11th of Nisan, the birthday of our Rebbe, to be connecting with your wonderful community, with Florida, all the way from Rostov. Now, I do try and play around with my internet a little, so you know that I'm actually here. So whenever I start to talk, I always make the internet go a little slow, so that you know that it's legit, that we're connecting all the way from Russia. So I wanted to begin by sharing with you a little bit. It's the 11th of Nisan is the birthday of the Rebbe. As Rabbi Vigler said, the Rebbe was born in 1902 in Ukraine. I myself, I'm not Russian. My parents weren't Russian. My parents aren't Russian. My grandparents aren't Russian. I'm born and raised in Canada. My wife is from the States. And I want to just share with you a little of our story, how we made it here, a little bit about life here, because it truly is fascinating. It's inspiring living amongst Jews here that have had to sacrifice so much to maintain their Yiddishkeit, to maintain their Jewish, connection. And it's something that inspires me on a daily basis, and I think it could inspire you as well. So we'll begin like this. When I spent a year in yeshiva, or 2 years in yeshiva, in the same yeshiva as Rabbi Vigler, it's in Kfar Chabad in Israel. So what happened was, as the summer was nearing, it was Pesach time, I had a roommate in the dormitory, and he told me, Chaim, why don't you come with us in the summer to Ukraine to help in a Jewish orphanage camp? So I told this roommate of mine, his name was Eli. I said, Eli, I appreciate the offer. Thank you very much, but I'm going to California. So now he's a good friend of mine. He's a good friend of mine from London. He has an interesting sense of humor. So he decided, listen, if you're not going to come with me to Ukraine, I'm going to make your life miserable in yeshiva. So, at night, he'd keep me up late, put on music. The first day it sounded funny. The second day was a joke. Third day, it already got a little, Ellie, let me sleep. Let's move on. Long story short, he eventually convinced me. And then he told me, by the way, Chaim, I forgot telling you that to come to our camp, you actually have to raise the funds for your ticket because we don't have the funds. The orphans, it's a difficult situation. You'll have to pay to come to work by us to be a counselor. That was very interesting. You have to pay to come to work. He said, Chaim, you'll understand when you come back. So we went around Israel, Kfar Chabad, to fundraise. And it was interesting because, fundraising is always a tough thing. Doing it in Israel is even tougher. Doing it in a village in Kfar Chabad is a lot tougher. So we're knocking on doors and we're asking people if they could please help these orphans, to help bring, take them to a summer, to have a nice summer camp. Now, they didn't get the memo. They were under the impression we're coming to collect half a shekel. The Torah says that God commanded Moses to collect a half a shekel from every Jewish person. So they started giving us half a shekel. And after going for 2-3 days, we ended up with a few, literally $15 or $20. So I looked at Ellie. I said, Ellie, this isn't working out. Let's call quits. We went out. I think it was one of those after. I think we bought a shoko in Israel. They sold shoko, chocolate milk in a bag, and a lachmania, which is a bun. I think we bought that, and I said, okay, listen, let's toast this in honor of the camp. But I'm going to California. Ellie wasn't about to give up. he didn't stop there. He said, Chaim, listen, you're going back to Canada, but on the way you have a stopover in London. I was flying British Airways. He said, let's stop in London and we'll fundraise there. And that's what we did. We went to London and we fundraised. We got the money needed. We flew to Ukraine. This is in 1998. I didn't speak a word of Russian. I landed in Kiev Borispol Airport. There's the car waiting outside. And I asked Kelly, how long is the drive to camp? He said, the drive is between 20 and 22 hours. I said, is this a joke? He said, this is not a joke. And nothing you're going to see in the next month is going to be a joke. So you better get used to it. So we sit in this car, no air conditioning, and the windows didn't roll down. So we're about 15 counselors in this like big, I guess, minibus or large minivan. And we're driving about 5 hours into the drive. I tell him, Ellie, were you perhaps thinking of serving us some food at some point? I mean, 5 hours, you know, we're Jews. Let's be honest. 5 hours in a ride on a flight. We can't be more than 2 hours without a snack, without a little something, a little l'chaim. So he says, yeah, we're going to stop in an hour for lunch. An hour later, he pulls over, and I'm never going to forget this. To this day, there's a few food items which I will not touch because of this trip. So he comes out, and he pulled the ceremonious lunch. So he pulls out one item, was matzahs. So it was a matzah box, and this is in 1998, and it had huge block letters on the matzah box. It said 1994. That was the first item he pulled out. Big, suspicious, let's be honest. 4 years later, and when you open it, by the way, it didn't have a bag packaging. So you open the box, and right there's the matzah. So you know you're not gonna get too much of a fresh matzah. I mean, let's be honest, the matzah is when it's fresh. You know, here in Russia we like matzahs, but most people they're not dying to eat matzah. You know, Pesach's over, you pack it away, and that's it. So no, that's the first item. The second item was a Melba round. It was an unsuccessful cracker made by Pashkes. So, you know, in the companies, the kosher companies, they make crackers. Sometimes they get the recipe well, and it becomes a popular cracker. Sometimes it just doesn't work. Not enough salt, too much pepper. Something didn't work in the recipe, and it's just not selling. Then it reaches the expiration date. What do? You know, we don't want to throw out crackers. The crackers, they ship them to Ukraine. That was the second item. We had tons of these crackers. And the third item, and this is the classic, you know, this is it was the Manischewitz gefilte fish in a jar. So he pulls this thing out. Thankfully, there was no year date on it. You know, when things get too old in this part of the world, what they do is they just scrape off the expiration date. Now, if it's more than a year or two, people don't, you know, they shouldn't know. You just scrape it off. So if you scrape it off, you know, it's not a good sign. Now, the second thing he said was, now we don't have enough gefilte fish for everyone. So half of the counters will be eating gefilte fish on their matzah, and the other half will get the jelly of the gefilte fish. But don't worry, because the next meal we're going to switch off, and those that got the jelly will get the gefilte fish. Those that got the at that point I started getting nauseous. I had a headache, nauseous. Looking at this food, I'm realizing this is what we're going to be eating for the next 4 weeks. We continued the drive. 20 hours later, we came to a place known as Crimea, a peninsula, and a city called Simferopol. We showed up there. We met with the local rabbi, the Chabad shliach, was sent more than 20 years ago. And I asked him, how many kids do we have in camp? He said, it's up to you. I said, what does that mean, it's up to me? He said, at the moment, we have none, but you guys will find the kids. And whatever you guys find, that's what camp is going to have. So I said, listen, I don't know if you know, none of us speak Russian. He's like, yeah, it's fine. You know, listen, I'll teach you 5 words. Yevrei means Jew. Camp is lager. And kids is dieti. So we're writing this down, okay? And then they sent me off before I knew it to a city called Yalta. Yalta, a beautiful city on the Black Sea. I'm walking down the boardwalk, and I'm supposed to, you know, look out for Jews. I see a guy standing, you know, he's a redhead, he had some freckles. I said, it could be a Jew. I don't know. I walk up, I'm like, you know, I look at him a little, he looks at me, and I said, Yevrei. Now, he yelled a barrage of words. I wasn't sure what he yelled or what he meant, but it certainly wasn't, yes, I'm a Jew. He wasn't too happy I was calling him a Jew, put it that way. Long story short, after a full day of work, I come back to this other city, Simferopol, and we have 2 kids. I found 2 Jewish kids. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, we have 20 counselors. I have 2 kids, and we'll come 10, 15 kids. It'll be an interesting camp, an overnight camp. 20 counselors, 15 kids. Long story short, other people had more success than I had. Camp began. We had 60 kids in camp. We arrived in camp. Kids that didn't know what Passover was. They don't know what matzah is. They don't know who Moses was. They don't know what the Torah is. They knew absolutely nothing. They came from homes where the fathers weren't Jews. They were brought up completely secular. Their grandparents knew little or nothing. Why? Because 70 years of communism. And they came to camp, and I suddenly saw there's this thirst for Yiddishkeit. They wanted to know, they wanted to keep, they're going, I'm telling them, go play ball, go play. No, we have questions. And then in the middle of camp, a boy came to me and he said, Chaim, I want to get a Jewish name. I want to do a bris. I'm like, what are you talking about? You want to do a bris? You're 13 years old. I mean, you're a little late to this party. What do you mean you want to do? And that night, I didn't know how to respond. I gave him a basketball. I told him, go play basketball. And he came back an hour later, he's like, I want to do a bris. And that night, we had a staff meeting. I told the head counselor, listen, we have a problem with a kid in my bunk. He doesn't have a bris, and he wants to do a bris. And this head counselor said, yeah, no problem. The Mohel's coming here the last day of camp, and whoever wants could get to do his bris. I was in shock. I'm looking at these people. I'm looking at these kids, and they want to reconnect to their roots. They want to do what it takes to be a proud Jew. Needless to say, I left that summer. The summer changed my life. I left that summer, and I knew that the next summer I wanted to come back. And year after year, I came back. We started the most successful overnight camp. We wanted to give them the experience that our children in the States have. So we did the best possible camp that would just give them the support they need, give them a safe environment, give them the knowledge they need in Yiddishkeit. Year after year, I did this. And then in 2004, I met my wife. We were dating. And you know the way it works in our circles, when it comes to dating, our parents choose our spouses for us. And they were invited, we're given a wedding date. And if we like our spouse, good. And if we, if it didn't, we were not crazy about it. Listen, in life, not always are you crazy about what you get, right? I'm joking. So I'm dating my wife, and things are going very well. And she's from Pittsburgh. Her name is Kayla. And about at the 8th date, we feel like things are getting serious. We're discussing now weddings and this. And then she's like, by the way, you're not planning on moving to Russia, right? I said, why? She said, because if you are, tell me now, I'm not in for that. So I said, oh, no, I'm not planning. That's all I could say at that point. We're too, your wife tells you you're not going. So you're not going? Your future wife? I said, no, I'm not. It didn't even cross my mind. So we got married in Pittsburgh. We moved to New York, and we wanted to become the biggest gift for someone who is Lubavitch is to become an emissary of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Personally, my family is from Ottawa. My mom is from Ottawa, and from my mother's side, the reason my mother is religious, knows what it means to be a Jew is thanks to the Rebbe's emissary from Ottawa. Because the Lubavitcher emissary in Ottawa, his name was Rabbi Vigler. He's passed on since, but he brought my mother's family, my grandparents, everyone back to the fold. These were it was a Jewish family, but they were secular. They knew very little, and they came back. So it was kind of a feeling like if we could ever become shluchim, if we could go out and to represent what the Rebbe stood for and help Jews in any city, it would be an amazing honor. And we got an offer to move out to Pasadena, California. We jumped on it. We went to check it out one time, California. I'm coming from Toronto. My wife's coming from Pittsburgh. We're living in Crown Heights, and the possibility of moving to Pasadena, beautiful city, the Rose Bowl parade, everything. We moved in a heartbeat. We got there in 2006, and it was a beautiful shluchas. We worked there together with shluchim that were there already, with emissaries that were there already. It was a beautiful year and a half. Then one day I get a phone call. The phone rings. It's the chief rabbi of Russia. And he says, Chaim, there's a city in Russia that needs a rabbi. There's 15,000 Jews. Would you consider moving to Russia? I told him, thank you for the offer, but me and my wife, we had a deal, and unfortunately it's not a possibility, but I appreciate that you're giving me this offer. It's meaningful. I appreciate it. He says, let me just tell you the name of the city. I said, okay. He says Rostov. When I hear the name Rostov, I stop. I listen. What Rostov? This is a big city. What is Rostov? Let me explain to you what Rostov is. Rostov was the capital of Chabad. In 1915, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe moved from Lubavitch, which is a village. Today it's next to Belarus. It's in White Russia. So the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe moved to Rostov. And this became the Brooklyn, the Crown Heights, the 770. of Lubavitch. And here I'm being offered to become an emissary in Rostov. Wow. Now, there's a lot of Jewish history here as well, a lot of hard history. When the Nazis occupied Russia, the city which had the largest genocide, the largest mass killing of Jews was Rostov. In 1942, the Nazis occupied Rostov and they killed over 20,000 Jews over the span of 2 days in what's known as the Russian Babi Yar. Rostov is famous because there are other things connected to the Holocaust. So if anyone heard it, the story of Sobibor, there's a famous story of Sobibor. What was Sobibor? It was the only successful uprising of a concentration camp, was the concentration camp of Sobibor. It was led by someone by the name of Alexander Pichersky. He also is a Jew, a native of Rostov. And I knew this, and this is another interesting ring in this story. Then there's the chief Rabbi of Israel, Rabbi Lau. He was saved in Buchenwald by someone who also turned out to be from Rostov, Fyodor Mikhailichenko. He was a young child, Rabbi Lau, and this Soviet soldier protected him and saved him in Buchenwald, and he because of that he survived. And so there's a famous also a very famous Zionist, Trumpeldor. If you go to Israel, every single city in Israel has a street called Trumpeldor, Rachov Trumpeldor. Who is this? He was also a famous Zionist that lived here in Rostov. He went to fight in the Japanese-Russian war. He lost, I think, a leg, or he got partially. Something happened, and then he ended up going to Israel. He was one of the founders of Israel. So much history. I told Rabbi Lazar, thank you, the chief rabbi of Russia. I appreciate the offer, but I don't think it's possible. I put down the phone. My wife heard this. She's not too happy. She heard Russia one time too many on the phone. Like, what's going on? And I'm thinking, okay, we're rabbis. We're in the world of sales. You have to sell something. What are we selling? We're selling Yiddishkeit. How do I sell to my wife moving to Russia? I was passionate about it. I love being in this part of the world because the Jews here have suffered so much and they have some special connection to Judaism that for me was always inspiring. So I told my wife, would you consider going to visit Russia? And after we're in Russia for a few days, we will continue to Israel for 2 weeks, a paid vacation by Russia's chief rabbi. And if we like Russia, we could consider moving there. If we don't like Russia, we got a free vacation to Israel and we come back here. And, Shalom al Yisrael, will be peace to all of us, and we'll continue living quietly and peacefully in Pasadena. My wife couldn't refuse such a great offer, and that's what we did. We moved. We didn't move. We took a flight in 2008. It was August. Now, we showed up here in Rostov. For some reason, the community didn't get the memo that we came as visitors. They were under the impression we were moving to Rostov. So we land in the airport, and we have 2 small pulleys, a little suitcase. And the people that met us, they came with like 3 cars, and they said, wait a minute, where's the rest of your baggage? We said, this is it. They said, why so little? We didn't understand what they're talking about. We have, a suitcase and 2 pulleys. They said, no, this is enough. They're looking at us funny. We're looking at them funny. Okay. Then the Rosh HaKol, every city in Russia has what's called the Rosh HaKol, the head of the community. It's a political position. He's someone that deals with the local government, with authorities. So he said he wants to introduce us to people in the community. So we showed up to the first person's office. This is Thursday afternoon, about 12 o'clock noon. We show up to someone's office, and I noticed under his desk, there's a little refrigerator. Why would someone have a refrigerator under his desk? I don't know. Sure enough, we found out 5 minutes after entering his office. He opens the fridge, pulls out a bottle of vodka, fills up a l'chaim, and he says, let's make a l'chaim in honor of my father of blessed memory. How could you turn such a l'chaim down? So I made a little l'chaim, and I put it down, and he looks at me. He's like, what do you mean you don't respect my father? I said, what do you mean? He said, drink for my father. You have to drink to the end. Okay, it's 12 noon. I just landed. We're jet lagged. Made a little l'chaim with him. Before I could put down the cup, he fills it again, now for my mother. I said, what do you mean? He said, made for my father. It wouldn't be right not to make for my mother. Okay, made a l'chaim for the mother. And then he's like, and now for my eldest son, who we're hoping he'll find a shidduch, let's make a l'chaim for my eldest son. I asked him, tell me please, Dmitry, how many children do you have? He said, I have 4 children. I said, let's make a l'chaim for the ganze mishpocha. Let's make one for the whole family at once. Okay, so we made a l'chaim. My wife is looking for us. She's like, what's going on here? We just landed. She's holding our baby with a 1-year-old, trying to calm him down. And we're making l'chaim for his mother, for his father, for the children. We left the office, and then we went to another office. And we walk in the other office, and the same thing repeats itself. He has his fridge under the desk, and he pulls out the l'chaim. At this point, my wife's, okay, we're getting out of here. She's looking up flights on her phone. This is Thursday. Can we make it to Israel before Shabbos? She sees we're here for some great. So we leave this guy's office, and I tell, at that point, I'm not feeling great. I tell the Rosh HaKol, listen, let's go back to the hotel. Let's call it a day. So there's one more person we have to go to. If we don't go there, you'll be insulted. He's a Kafkazi Jew. They're called mountain Jews. You have to go. So we went to this guy's office, and he did not have a fridge under his table. And I was thankful. I was grateful. I was like, Baruch Hashem, after making l'chaim, this guy doesn't have it. And he laughs at me. The Rosh HaKol laughs at me. The head of the community, he's laughing. I'm like, what? You'll see. So I asked the guy, his name is Lev. I asked him, Lova, what do you do? What's your business? He's like, oh, you didn't see? This is a vodka factory. So this guy doesn't need the fridge under his table because his entire factory is like one big walk-in fridge. So he pulls out and making a l'chaim and this. I said, listen, we're done. I'm Canadian. We don't do this. You want to make some juice. Long story short, I came to the hotel. My wife was going to look up tickets to Israel. There were no flights. I went to sleep. I think I woke up Friday afternoon. And I woke up and Shabbos is starting. And I'm actually going to ask Rabbi Vigler if he could let me share my screen. So Friday afternoon, Shabbos has begun. We left our hotel, which is located right around the corner from the shul. Rostov's shul is a beautiful shul built 150 years ago. This year is exactly 150 years. It's a shul. It's known as the Soldatskaya Synagogue, the soldier shul. It was built by brave Cantonese soldiers. These are soldiers that gave their life for Yiddishkeit. These are soldiers that fought to remain Jewish. They were taken from their homes at age 10, 11, 12. They were taken from their parents' homes and they were re-educated in secular schools. At age 18, they began a 25-year mandatory service in the Tsar's army. When they came back to Rostov, they're 43 years old. They went to the main synagogue, and the synagogue wasn't too welcoming to them. Because in a synagogue, in a shul, in a community, what's the thing that's most important? Family. And these people came back and they had no family. They weren't married. They had no children. They had scars from the war. They decided to build their very own shul. And this is the shul they built in 1872. It's the last remaining shul. At that time, there were 13 shuls in Rostov. This is the last remaining shul. So I come in here Friday night and we daven. After davening, we have kiddush. After kiddush, I'm thinking to myself, okay, we're going to make kiddush. We'll go home soon. I did kiddush. We did the challah. And then I told the Rosh HaKol, bring out the food. We'll have a little kiddush. He says, no, this is it. We did the kiddush and that's it. There's no meal. So I said, okay, great. No one's going to stay too long and we'll leave. But no, when Russian Jews come to shul, they don't come for the cholent. They don't come for the kishka. They don't come for the salads or for the drinks. They come because they're Jews and they want to connect to their Yiddishkeit. They want to connect to their heritage. They sat down there, not for a half an hour, not for an hour. They sat for 2 hours and they're asking questions and they're interested and they want to know what holidays, what's coming up and what they have to do. It was a beautiful sit down. There were young people, there were old people. I saw it was a community that has people of all ages. So we sat there. I loved it. It was amazing. Shabbos ended. We went to Israel. After we went to Israel, we came back to California. When we came back to California, the topic of Russia became taboo. I'm wondering what, my wife is quiet. So I'm quiet. A day passes, 2 days pass, 3 days pass. And I'm like, okay, what did you think about, I asked my wife, Kayla, what did you think of the trip? She says, oh, I love Jerusalem. It was so nice being in Jerusalem. It's been so long since I've been there. She spent a year there as a student. I said, anything else? Any other thoughts about the trip? She's like, I'm so happy you convinced me to go to Hebron. It's been so many years since I went to Myra Samachpela, to Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. It's been so many years. Beautiful. Is there anything else? She's like, oh, I'm happy we went up north to Rosh Hanikra near Haifa. It was so beautiful there. I said, how about before Jerusalem? Any thoughts about the trip before we got to Jerusalem? So my wife was silent. And she said, Chaim, we're emissaries of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Rebbe sent us not to a place that we're comfortable. He sent us so that we could be impactful. And it's clear that if there's a city of 15,000 Jews, the right thing is that we should move there. If there's no other rabbi there, let's do it. She said that. We sold what we had in our apartment there in California. We drove to New York. We had another child, our second child in Pittsburgh, and we flew in 2009, February. We arrived here in Rostov, and a week later, my wife asked me, let's get meat from shul, kosher meat. So I go to the shul, I ask, where's the kosher meat? They say, oh, the previous rabbis used to bring it with them. They used to bring it with them from Israel when they'd come. So I said, you're a little late telling me this. We arrived already. Why didn't you tell me before? So we started schlepping. Every time we'd fly, we take with us meat, we take with us food. One time I arrived here, it was the summer, we had a stopover, and I was debating, is the meat going to arrive is it going to stay frozen? We freeze up the meat and we bring it here. And I wasn't sure, is it going to stay frozen? Is it not going to stay frozen? But we figured it's going to make it. We landed in Rostov. We go to the carousel and all the suitcases are turning around and no one's taking their suitcases. I'm wondering, why is no one touching their baggage? I come a little closer and I see that the suitcase was a duffel bag. We put a box full of frozen meat in a duffel bag, and I noticed that it's dripping blood. And my friends, in Russia, when the suitcase drips blood, it's not usually in a duffel bag. A duffel bag. Duffel bag is narrow and long. It's black. It looks like a different type of bag that we should know from, right? So when there's a duffel bag that's dripping blood, no one's thinking that you're bringing kosher meat. And they know, they're probably protocol. If it's coming like that, let's let those people that have to pick up that bag go first, and then we'll take our stuff. So I'm thinking to my wife, I'm uncomfortable. Do I take the bag? Do I not take the bag? And then I said, we don't have a choice. No one's gonna go. So I schlepped this bag. You pick it up. It was 50 pounds of meat, heavy in one area. You pull it off, and when people see it's heavy to bowl, they know, this. And they look at the guy with the beard. Everyone's looking the other direction. Oh no, I'm eye contact with the guy that's pulling off the duffel bag with the dripping blood. So I took it there. We schlepped it out. Since then, my wife knows in August, we don't bring meat. August is our month off. If you're flying in August, stop over in Prague, you're not taking meat with you. We arrived here, and you know what happened? The first Shabbos, after we arrived, we made a kiddush in shul. And at that point, I told the shul that we have to have a full meal. So at the kiddush, Yosef, this very dear Jew, he sings songs in Yiddish. He remembers from childhood songs in Yiddish. He loves it. He comes to shul. You see his eyes light up. After the meal, I noticed Yosef was walking around and he was filling the leftover foods in a bag. But what really caught my eye was that he had one bag. And this one bag, he was putting all the foods in the same bag. He put the challah and the fish and the rice and the salad in the same bag. So I thought he's probably throwing it out. And then I asked him, why is he collecting it in a bag? And they said, no, he's taking this to his house. And I said, why is he taking it home? And they said, because he needs food. And I said, but why is he not putting it in separate bags? Or why? And then it occurred to me that for Yosef, food is not a luxury. It's not about taste, it's about survival. So the next week I called Yosef. I said, Yosef, you're never again to take food from our meal. Every Friday, you're going to come to the synagogue, and when we cook food for Shabbos, before Shabbos, you're going to get food that you're going to take home and you're going to eat. Why? Because we have to help in a dignified way. We have to help people in a way that they should feel dignified. Yosef was so happy. His face lit up. I since got to know where he lives. He lived in a little shack. And actually, just recently, a year ago, Yosef's house burnt down. Miraculously, he was saved. And he came to me, he said, Rabbi, my house burned down. Everything's horrible. I don't even have my hearing aids burnt. I told him, Yosef, you're alive. It's a miracle. Your wife is alive. It's a miracle. 2 weeks ago, we started rebuilding his house from scratch. And he stands there from morning to night. He just smiles, his beaming smile, looking as the workers come and they put brick after brick after brick. But what we realized more than anything is that people can't take home leftover food. They have to eat dignified. We made our soup kitchen. And Jews, older Jews, younger Jews would come throughout the day. There's no specific time. You can come when you want. The kitchen's open. There's breakfast. There's lunch. You can take food for dinner. And it was a beautiful thing, seeing people, Jews coming in. They'd come to shul in the morning. They'd dive in. Then they'd continue to the soup kitchen. They'd take food to their homes. It was so important to see these Jews once again feel that they're protected, feel that they have what they need. This Jew sitting down here right now, I want to tell you about him because he today came back from the hospital. His name is Hirsch. What an amazing Jew. I had a story with this Hirsch that I got a call. It was Hanukkah a few years ago. And someone told me that Hirsch is at home. He's not doing well. You should go visit him. So I took my kids. We went to Hirsch's house. He's a lonely Jew. His wife has passed. He has no children. And he's lying in bed. When I came to his house, we brought a food package and a menorah. And he told me, Rabbi, I don't think I'll need all that food. I said, why? He said, I don't think I'm going to live too much longer. I told him, how could you say that, Hirsch? What's going on? He said that my wife has passed. I've had 2 heart attacks. And now I have I have cancer. He said, I have nothing to live for. So, Rabbi, I appreciate you came to visit me, but you don't need to come again. I'm not going to be here much longer. And I realized for the first time in my life, there is a Jew that doesn't want to live. What do you tell someone who doesn't want to live? What do you tell someone who lost hope? What do you tell someone who doesn't have a feeling, doesn't want? So I look at him and I'm thinking, what can I say? And then something came to mind. I looked at him and I told him, Hirsch, we need you. We need you. He said, what? I told him, Hirsch, you know that in Rostov, in 1942, the Nazis came and they killed every single Jew. He said, yes, I know. And there's a famous place called Zmiovskaya Balka. It's called Snakes Valley, where all the Jews were marched to and they were killed. He said, yes, I know. I told him we have a problem because it's so important for us to daven and to say Kaddish in their honor and their memory. The problem is that we don't have a minyan. And if you come to shul, you'll be the 10th man in shul. Would you please consider coming so that we could have a minyan and we could commemorate the memory and we could pray for those Jews that were killed at Zmiovskaya Balka? He looks at me, he says, you need me? I said, yes, Hirsch, we need you. You're the 10th man. He said, if you really need me, I'll be there tomorrow. He's saying this while he's lying in bed. The next morning, we have a minyan 10 a.m. And sure enough, 5 to 10, he pulls in to show. He's walking with a cane. This is the winter. It's icy. It's slippery. But he comes in and he says, Rabbi, you need me, right? I said, yes, we need you. And he sat down. And he's been coming to shul every single day since. Thankfully, Hirsch is not a mathematician. Because if he was, he'd see that he wasn't the 10th man. But he comes every single day, rain or shine, rain, snow, slush, he's there. And he kvetches. He's a real Jew. You know, Jews kvetch. He's a kvetcher. Oh, he's this krachting and kvetching, and it's difficult. But he comes every single day. Why? Because he wants to commemorate the Jews, and he wants to answer Amen. And you know, when COVID hit, when the pandemic began, we temporarily suspended prayer services, and we turned our synagogue into mostly focusing on humanitarian help, giving people food. And the rule was, if people are older, we deliver to their homes. If they're younger, they could come pick up food themselves. And one day, it was a Friday, I'm in the middle of setting up these food packages, and I look and I see this beautiful Jew, Hirsch, walks in shul with a mask. I look at him, I was angry. I said, Hirsch, why are you coming here? We deliver food to your house. Why are you coming to our shul? With a tear in his eye, he tells me, Rabbi, I didn't come here to pick up food. I came here, please, would you let me sit down in shul for 5 minutes? I need the shul. I need to connect to the shul. I need the support. And I look at Hirsch. He's a person of very little means, but he didn't come here to get the food today. He came here to connect again to his heritage, to refill his battery. He sat down, and then he got up, and he came, he hugged me, and he walks out. He didn't even ask for the food. I ordered a taxi for him. We put the food in his car, and he left. And since then, we've been coming to visit him at home. He went to the hospital recently. He was there for a month and a half. Thank God it wasn't COVID. And just today, I got a phone call. He calls me again. He's like, Rabbi, I'm back home. When are you going to come visit me? Hirsch, when this story happened, I realized that more than anything, people need a reason to live. People need to feel needed. And that's why we established in the community programs that were able to help all the older people so they should feel that they're not, you know, when you have no family, when you have no one around, you feel, am I needed? So what happened was this amazing woman, her name, she was like a grandmother to us, Miriam. We told her, Miriam, you're the last remaining Jew who speaks Yiddish. You're opening the Yiddish club. And she would come every single week, teach Yiddish in our shul. Miriam, when she grew up in Rostov, she used to take her grandparents to our shul, but she used to stay outside because she said, if I would come into shul, I would be kicked out of the university I'm learning in. And finally, when the shul opened after the fall of communism, the shul for her was her life. She loved it. She'd come every Shabbos, every holiday. She was 94 years old when she passed away just recently, a half a year ago. We'd come to her house. She was a bubby to our children. She had no children of her own, and her husband passed. But for her, it was about giving, about helping, about feeling needed, and that's exactly what she did. But I want to end with one story so that we could still have some time for questions and answers. And this is a story that really, for me, it's a story that repeats itself, but it's very moving, very special. I mentioned at the beginning that when I first came to camp here in Russia, there was a boy that wanted to do a bris at an older age. And that is something that for me, as a rabbi, we come across many different stories. We see many different, situations that are difficult, that are inspiring, that are special. But for me, when someone at an older age comes to me and tells me, Rabbi, I want to do a bris, it's mind-boggling. So why would someone who's 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old feel that he wants to do a bris and he wants to get a Jewish name? I think I said, would I do a bris if I was 50 and I didn't have, would I go? Of course not. What is this person coming? He knows little about Yiddishkeit. So whenever someone does a bris, and we do it in our shul, in my office, I have a desk. We put a mattress on the desk. We invite a surgeon who is a mohel from Moscow. He actually lives in the States now. And he comes and he does a bris. And when there's a bris, every time there's a bris, I tear. I look at these Jews and I see the tremendous self-sacrifice. So I want to tell you a story. A 50-year-old man came to me and he told me, Rabbi, his name is Boris, I want to do a bris. Again, I'm moved. I'm looking at this Jew and I'm so amazed. I call the mohel. He says he's going to come in a week's time. The mohel comes a week later. And you know what happens? He arrives 2 hours before sunset. According to Jewish law, we can do a bris until sunset. So he has until 5 p.m. to do the bris. Until he gets his instruments ready and everything together, it's 3:30. There's an hour and a half left. And the bris ceremony begins in my office. Are there any doctors here? No doctors, so I'll tell you, other than the rabbi, right? Okay, so I'll tell you, I don't know so much about medical thing, but I do know it's very important to sterilize the room before the bris. So we you spray Lysol and to sterilize the room. And I'm joking, of course, right? But when we come to the office, the doctor comes in and he sterilizes the stuff and everything. And I think to myself, if I was brought into a surgery room, that's the office of a rabbi, or for that matter, anyone, and I'm told you lie down on the table, I'd be like, are you nuts? Are you crazy? Get out of here. It has not happened once in 12 years. Hundreds of people doing brisim. Never has one person even looked. Yeah, coming here, going here. So this guy is doing the bris, Boris, 50-year-old man. And I'm the son that I'm holding his head. He's lying down. I just hold his head. And I start crying. I look at this Boris. What an amazing Jew. 70 years of communism. His parents knew nothing. His father was a communist, and he's coming back to the fold. He's getting a Jewish name. Suddenly there's a knock on my door. What's going on? There's a knock on my door. And I open the door, and there's a 13-year-old boy from our school. His name is Nikita. He's at the door. And I say, hi, Nikita. He says, Rabbi, is it true that the mohel is here? I said, yes. He said, I'd like to do a bris today. I said, does your mother know? Are you sure? He said, yes. My mother's on her way. She's coming. So I say, wait a minute. I close the door. I go back into my office and I tell the mohel, I say, Shaya, his name is Shaya. I say, Shaya, we have to hurry on Boris because we have another bris we have to fit in before sunset. Boris hears that I said we have to hurry on Boris. He's not too happy. He's like, no, don't hurry. Take your time. We have all the time in the world. So I said, don't worry, we're joking. But I told them, we have to fit in Nikita before sunset. And sure enough, at 20 minutes to 5, Nikita enters the room. He lies down on this desk. He gets local anesthesia, and he's petrified. He's terrified. Nikita's shaking. You could look at him. You see his hands are moving. He's shaking. He's terrified. I said, Nikita, are you sure you want to do it? You don't have to do this. He said, yes, I have to do it, and I'm going to do it. And his mother's outside, and she tells me, Rabbi, don't pay attention. Nikita's terrified. I take him to the dentist. I have to run after him. He shakes in just don't worry. He's going to have a little panic attack, but it's normal. So he's lying down and we're beginning the bris ceremony. And we do the actual bris procedure. And then after that, you have the stitching and all the other stuff. And I'm talking to him. I tell him, Nikita, I have a question for you. I did not tell you to come today. I did not announce in school that the Moel is here. Can you please tell me why you came here today? You're obviously very scared. You're obviously petrified. Why would you do a bris today? He looks at him and he says, Rabbi, he says, this summer, I was in camp, in a Jewish camp for the very first time. Our big project here is to make an overnight camp. Every summer, we do an overnight camp. We gather 150 kids from all over southern Russia, from towns and villages that have no synagogues, they have no shuls, no rabbis, no Jewish schools. We go looking for Jews. Just like the Nazis hunted Jews in 1942 to, God forbid, kill them, we hunt them to bring them back to the fold. And we find one village has 3 Jews, we send a car there, Jewish children, and we bring them to our camp. Across the border in Donetsk, Lugansk, 2 cities that were suffering, there was a lot of fighting going on there. We bring another 25 kids and we gather 150 kids. These kids know little or nothing about Yiddishkeit. They come to camp. So Nikita's telling me this summer, I came to camp for the very first time. And he says that this summer when I came to camp, the head counselor said, who wants to be called to the Torah? Who wants to get a blessing by the Torah? And whoever gets a blessing by the Torah will also get a blessing for his family. I said, I want to get a blessing. So they said, okay, but you have to pay for it. I told the head counselor, I don't have money. He said, no, you have to do a mitzvah. You don't have to pay money, you have to do a mitzvah. If you want us to call you up to the Torah, you have to take upon yourself a Jewish commitment. So he says, I looked at that counselor, what should I do? He says, my counselor told me it's important to get a Jewish name. My counselor, and amazing, he had a beautiful counselor, an 18-year-old boy from Rostov. This boy was his counselor. He told me that I have to do a bris. So I raised my hand and I said, I'm going to do a bris within 3 years. And he tells me, do you know why I said 3 years? He said, because I'm petrified of it. I figured if I say 3 years, I'll wait till the last day, right before I turn 16, and that's when I'm going to do it. So I said, why are you coming now? He said, I'll tell you why. Because my counselor, the reason I decided to do a bris was because my counselor pushed me. When the head counselor heard that I'm going to do it within 3 years, he said, I have a problem. What's the problem? I live in Moscow, the head counselor said. How do I know you're going to do it? We need a guarantor. We need someone who lives in Rostov who's going to guarantee that you're going to do this. So I looked at my counselor, Shalom, who lives in Rostov, and I said, he's going to be my guarantor. Shalom, this amazing 18-year-old Baal Tshuva boy, you see him right here, he's wearing a shirt of our camp. He's going to be my guarantor to make sure that I do it within 3 years. When the head counselor heard that, he called me up to the Torah, and I got the bracha. At this point, I understood where the story is going. This amazing boy, Shalom, who started keeping kosher on his own, started keeping Shabbos, who started inspiring his friends to live a Jewish way of life, was tragically killed in a car accident 2 weeks before the Mohel came to town. And Shalom is looking, and this boy Nikita is looking, and he says, you understand now why I'm doing the bris? I know that Shalom, his neshama, is waiting for me. I know that Shalom wants me and needs me to do this today. I can't wait another day. I need to do it now. And I was terrified. I didn't want to come, but I knew that I had to do it to honor his memory and to give his neshama an aliyah. He says this, I start crying. I'm looking. Shalom for us was a son. He was a very dear son. He was in a horrible car accident. He was killed on impact. And what is this 13-year-old boy doing? This is Nikita, right after he walked out of the room, right after he did his bris. This 13-year-old boy, whose father's a non-Jew, who knows little about Judaism at the time. He just came to our school that year. He decides that he has to do something in honor of his dear counselor, who taught him so much about Judaism, but unfortunately gave back his soul to the Creator at a way too early age. So I'm standing next to him in my office. It's right outside the office. And we finished the procedure and we did the naming ceremony. And I hold a cup of wine and I'm holding it and I say, Karesh Mobi Yisrael, what name are you choosing? And he looks at me and he's like smiling. I'm like, what? He says, Shalom. He's taking the name of his counselor. Wow. I couldn't continue. I was choking. I'm looking at this boy. How does he get the courage? How does he get the strength? What is causing a 13-year-old boy to elevate this counselor's soul so greatly by doing such a huge act of self-sacrifice? I couldn't continue. It was the first time I took this cup of wine. I put it down. I'm just looking at this guy. I'm trying to process what I'm seeing. Eventually, I take the cup back. I continued the blessing. We named him Shalom. After that, he says, we want to go to the old Jewish cemetery in Rostov because that's where the Rebbe, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, is buried here in Rostov. And I want to pray at his grave, and I want to tell the Rebbe what I did, that I did this for Shalom. You know, anytime I'm at a bris, I get emotional. You look at the type of courage someone needs to live this type of a life and to take such a huge step, such a huge mitzvah. It's inspiring. But I looked at this Nikita and he just blew me away. Now, why am I sharing this story? I'm sharing this story because, you know, most of us have grandparents or great grandparents that came from this part of the world. Most of us have grandparents that found courage. You know, they left to America in the early 1900s or the late 1800s. They left at a time, can I ask if anyone, by raise of hands, does anyone have parents that come from the former Soviet Union, that'd be Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, Latvia, Lithuania? Okay, I see here 5, 6, 7, 8 people. Okay, so a question I asked myself when I came here, when I moved here, I asked myself, why are we different? Why am I any better than the Jews here that suffered so much? They suffered through the Nazi occupations of the city and the mass killings. They suffered through 70 years of communism. I'm thinking, why was I privileged to grow up in Canada? Why was I privileged to grow up in Toronto? And there's only one answer to that question, that our great-grandparents or grandparents or parents decided to pick up and leave at a time that it meant tremendous sacrifice on their part. Many of them were affluent. My great-grandparents were affluent when they lived in Ukraine. And they left not knowing where they're going or what's going to be. It required tremendous self-sacrifice and courage. But I today deal with the Jews whose grandparents did not have the ability to leave or that were not courageous enough to leave. And that's why they're standing with these huge challenges in life. And that's why I feel that for the past 12 years, you know, when I moved here, people asked, why are you moving to Russia? I said, we're moving here to inspire the Jews. 12 years later, I could tell you that I lied. I said that's not the truth. For the past 12 years, instead of inspiring the local Jews, we've been getting inspired on a daily basis. And the message I want to end with, because I've gone a little longer than I wanted to, the message I want to end with is that in the end of the day, what is the driving force behind these Jews? What gets these Jews going? It's the fact that they have a neshama, the fact that they have a Jewish soul. And believe me, the Jews here don't have anything that we have in Toronto, in Palm Beach, in Florida. They live very difficult lives. When we now started giving food packages, suddenly Jews that we never knew existed are coming because they're suffering and it's difficult. The pandemic has taken a very difficult turn. You know, for Pesach last year, pandemic began before Pesach. It caught us off guard. Usually on Pesach, we have 700 people join us at our public seders. We do 5 different seders for children, for adults, for elders, for seniors, for survivors, for families. And this last year, we couldn't do it and it was caught off guard. This year, we knew we can't do it either. But this year, thankfully, we got ready in time and we have 1,000 food packages sitting in shul. People are coming the whole day today, yesterday, and tomorrow. And they're taking it. Why? So they could celebrate Pesach at home. And it's a very modest home. It's apartments. I just want to share with you one last picture, and with this I'll open for question answers. And I'm sharing this because this picture is from today, and I just want to show this to you because it really, I thought living here 12 years I've seen it all, but no. I was informed yesterday that there's a 75-year-old woman who does not have running water in her apartment. And I said, that's not possible. This is a woman who receives daily deliveries of our food. We have a soup kitchen. She receives deliveries every day. And how could it be someone not having water in their apartment? So they said that it was turned off a year ago and she doesn't have water. And I said, I have to go see myself and we have to help her if that's the case. So I went today And I came into this. This is someone's kitchen. This is this lady's kitchen, a Jew who's living in 2021 here in Rostov. She receives, if you look at her, this is here. These are her food packages right here, lying on top of her of the stove. We bring them in that. Every day she gets them. I come to her house. There's spider webs. She's alone, no children, no living relatives. I was in shock. I left there today, and she's smiling. She's not angry. She's not sad. But I looked at her, and I said, you know, we could do more. We could be more impactful. It occurred to me over the past, you know, since the pandemic began, that there's a lot more we could do to help people. And that's what our focus has been. Before the pandemic, the focus was on a lot of educational programs and bringing people to the fold. We made a little pause on that a year ago, and it's to allow people, to help people materially, physically, so they could somehow get by this difficult time we're in. So I'm just finishing with this and saying we should be thankful for what we have. And because today is the Rebbe's birthday, I want to add and say the Rebbe demanded of all of us that we should go out of our limitations a little. When someone came to the Rebbe and said, I did this, that, or the other, and they were waiting to get a big clap on the back and a big amazing, the Rebbe smiled. But he also said, but you could do more. Or he said, and what's next? You know, never stop, never be happy with what you have. I see that here on a daily basis, how Jews are working every day in difficult circumstances, working on becoming better Jews and knowing more and doing more. And the truth is, the story that happened with Nikita or with anyone else is a story that could happen with each and every one of us. Why? Because we have to realize that we have a neshama in us that's a lot stronger than we think. And if we just decide to channel its energy and to believe in ourselves, we could achieve a lot more than we think is possible. With that, I'll end. Yeah.
Wow, Rabbi Danzinger, that was like an amazing presentation. So incredible. As I open to the questions, if anybody would like to ask any questions or make comments, I just want to point out that Rabbi Danzinger's story is really not so far out, because right here in our group, we have someone from the south of Russia who grew up in the south of Russia. There he is, Usher Russo is waving. And he was raised in a town. Usher, give us the short version of your story there. Usher, just unmute yourself and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. Hi, rabbis. So
Usher is in Palm Beach Gardens right now. He's a member of our community. Go ahead, Usher.
So I grew up in the city, like a few hours away from Rabbi Danzinger is. We had a little Chabad house before Rabbi went to Israel for family reasons. And then I came to the United States when I was in a student exchange program. I came to Los Angeles, and where I actually also had my circumcision at the age of 19 with Rabbi Naftali Estulin on his table in his synagogue and next to his office.
In Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles, right. And so I was able to relate to the story, and Rabbi Danzinger was a really breathtaking story you'd say about all the people that I can really connect, because that's why I grew up at. And now, of course, I'm very privileged to have beautiful family. My father-in-law is right here. He was also fascinated by the story. My mother-in-law actually went to Russia. She said she visited, the families and condition that the Russian Jews live there one time. And so I do try to, it seems like a lot of my friends actually moved out a little bit from Russia. It's because it was really difficult for us and we were able to. We try to keep connection. And, I wish, Rabbi, that, you're going to be successful in endeavors and you're going to bring, help more people. I see on Facebook that you deliver a lot of food packages. And before Purim, I think you bought entire metro, whatever, entire store. So I think you bought like $20,000 food for for the entire town. If you get I saw those amazing food packages, and sometimes I think about it, and I'm grateful for that where I am right now, and hopefully one day I would be able to to help others, and in any way I can. And Rabbi, if you have any people who wants to talk to me in your community, I'm happy to maybe some counseling, some help, whatever they need to.
That's very nice. They want to talk in person, so just give me your address. They'll show up tomorrow, set up a few beds, and we'll have a minion or two by tomorrow morning.
Let me tell you, Rabbi Danzinger, that Usher comes to shul every single morning. Him and his wife Meira, they're Shomer Shabbos, and they keep all the mitzvahs of the Torah right here in our community, Chabad Palm Beach Gardens. It's just so amazing. I always say that Chabad is like Verizon. You know that. You know what Verizon is, Rabbi Danzinger?
Yeah.
Verizon. Chabad is like Verizon because wherever you are, we've got you covered. From south of Russia to the south of the United States. You're always in the network, and it's just amazing that with over 5,000 Chabad centers, we're able to really help out our fellow Jews on their spiritual journeys across the world. It's just so inspiring, so incredible. You like move me to tears with the story of Nikita and Shalom over there, and what you do every single day is just so inspirational and so beautiful. Usher is most certainly a success story, and thank you for sharing that story with us, Usher. If anybody has any questions or comments to Rabbi Danzinger, I see a question coming in from Norman. I'm going to read it to you, Rabbi Danzinger. Is there much anti-Semitism in Russia today?
Okay, actually, to be honest, and I always say this, that I spent a lot of time. I spent a year in Hong Kong, a year in South Africa, a year in Europe. I've traveled Europe extensively. Anti-Semitism in Europe is so much worse than it is here. What that means is over the past, the situation for Russian Jewry today is, in my opinion, the best it's been in hundreds of years. Over the past 20 years, the government has returned so many Jewish buildings, synagogues, schools. In our city, a building that used to be a school, a Jewish school 120 years ago, was returned to the community. So the government does a lot to protect the Jewish communities, to support some way or another the Jewish communities. That being said, could you have an incident here and there? Of course you could have. You have that everywhere. But when something's going on in Israel and you're having protests in Europe and people and fight, no one here cares. People here overall look at Jews. Israel is a place that many people visit or want to go to. Overall, thank God. And we don't want to open, our mouths to anything, but overall we feel Baruch Hashem safe. There's, when we have holidays, we call the police. The police comes and they put a police car outside our shul for Rosh Hashanah for the big holidays, so they should keep an eye on things. They always ask if we need it or this or that. So thank God. The stories you hear of Russia and the scary stories, those are of a time that has, thank God, passed. And we pray that it should continue being this way because it really is a miracle. What happened here, the Rebbe foresaw what was happening in the fall of communism. No one believed in it. And it really is a miracle that's ongoing because everything that happens here today are things that were not possible 30 years ago. And for that, we're thankful. And it's really a modern day miracle.
Amazing. If there's anybody else that has questions, please feel free to ask. I see that Luba has a fascinating comment. Luba is saying, thank you very much, Rabbi. I feel so much connected. My father was born and raised in Lubavici. Luba,
wow.
Does that mean you're born and bred in Lubavitch? Where are you from, Luba?
Wow.
Where do you live now? You got to unmute yourself. You have to unmute. We can't hear you, Luba. Luba means love in Russian. Go one more time. You still muted? Hold on. One more time. Can you unmute yourself? There you go. Go ahead.
Actually, I was born and raised in Moscow, and I live here in Boston, and I just visiting here in Florida. But I just want to say that listening to the rabbi, I felt so much connected because my father was born and raised in Lubavitch, and he came with us, and he had 6 years of beautiful life in this country, and I'm so proud that my father could see with his own eyes, this land of honey and milk. It's not so much anymore, but it was amazing.
What year was he born?
What year? 1911.
Yeah. Was he born in an observant home?
Yes, very much an observant home, and they were neighbors with Rabbi Schneer's son.
Amazing!
And,
wow,
that's amazing.
Wow. This is amazing because that is 4 years after your father was born, the Rebbe and the close Hasidim moved from that village. It's not a city of Lubavitch, it's a village. You had 1,000 people living there. They moved from there to Rostov because the First World War was nearing, and they had to escape, and they came here to southern Russia because it was considered safer. So, Lyuba, it would be very interesting if you could look me up and send me a note, because I'd love to hear if you have anything about this. It's like a story that's very special. I never in my life met someone that was born in Lubavitch.
Me neither.
Never.
It's amazing. What's your email address, Rabbi Danzinger?
My email
My
address.
email address.
Oh, just
Yeah, Luba, what's your email?
I'm going to write it down there.
Very good. And Rabbi Danzinger, if you could write down your email address in the chat box
Sure.
as well. That's amazing. Really incredible, Luba, to be able to connect with you like that. Sophie Berkner is from Belarusia. She wants to know how's your Russian, Rabbi?
I guess she has to test me.
Sophie, you gotta
Кто
say
тут
something
понимает
in
по-русски, кто-то говорит по-русски? Есть у нас? Кто-то не понимает, руки поднимите, чтобы я знал, что вы понимаете. Есть русский говорят. Отлично, у нас трое уже есть. My Russian is a very difficult language to learn. There's something in Russian. I think it was a mistake whoever thought of this thing, because it's a killer. Падежи. What that means is, in English, water is always water. Whatever you want to form in the sentence, water is water. In Russian, you have vodu, vody, vada. Every word has an ending that could change in 5 different or 7 different ways, and it's been a challenge to learn. But thank God, it's a very rich language, and it's a learning process. But no, thank God, I speak Russian. When I first moved here, I thought that we would be speaking in English. It became very clear very soon that it wouldn't be possible. So we had to learn Russian, and that's what we do. My kids speak Russian, and I see a question
Very
that came
nice.
in.
Very
How
nice.
is Jewish dating in Russia? So yeah, that's the big I guess you'd say mission, because assimilation rate in Russia is probably over 90%.
Wow.
So the big, so to speak, the big, challenge is to really get Jews together so that they could establish Jewish homes. Thank God, we just had now a young couple that came back to the fold, and they went actually to the Ohel, the 5th Lubavitcher Rebbe's burial place, to ask for a blessing, as they decided they got engaged, and they're getting married in 2 months. When people get engaged, and many times they don't have the ability to make a proper wedding. So we already have a system in place where if they can't afford their own wedding, we do the chuppah in the Rebbe Rashab's home. So the original home where the Rebbe lived in Rostov 100 years ago is still standing. So we do the chuppah there, which is a very sentimental and meaningful ceremony. Imagine you're going back 100 years to what was the 770 of Chabad. That's where we do the chuppah. And we do the actual banquet and the beautiful evening gathering in our shul, which is nice. We set it up as a banquet, and we take care of the meal and everything else. So God willing, we have one of those coming up, probably right after Shavuos. And obviously we want to have more, but we do get a few every year.
Amazing. Rabbi Danzinger, we should try to arrange a trip to Rostov. Is that okay for us to come to Russia one day after the pandemic?
Absolutely. We have we'll have the authentic Russian food, the authentic Russian experience, which would be a banya.
That would take gefilte fish on the Melba toast.
Well, we don't have gefilte fish. We have the jelly for you guys. I saved some jelly, so we have some jelly, and the 1994 matzah is still here. It's still we still have a few boxes left for you guys.
This is such an inspirational message that the prophets tell us that when Mashiach will come, there will be no Jew left behind. Every single Jew, ve'atem teluktu echad l'shivtei Yisrael, and you will be gathered, each and every one of you, the tribes of Israel. As we open the door on Matzi Shabbos on Saturday night and on Sunday night for Elijah the prophet, we pour the cup of wine because we believe that Elijah is coming to announce the coming of Mashiach. It's not only going to be in Palm Beach and in New York and in Miami, it's going to be in every last corner of the earth. And it's because of the devoted soldiers like Rabbi Chaim and Kayla up at 3 o'clock in the morning in Rostov, that we're so grateful for you to make sure that you're on the front lines of Judaism, making sure that no Jew is left behind. I see a question coming in from Elissa. Rabbi, how can we help with your soup kitchen? How can people help out?
That's very nice of you. We have a U.S. nonprofit organization which can issue tax receipts and all that stuff. We have a website. If that's good on the website, you can email me. The website is jewishrostov.com, and there's a donate page. I'll just put in here. Greatly appreciated. Unfortunately, locally there isn't really any support. So in better times, I used to travel a lot. So I'd go to Australia, Europe, the States, and make our rounds. This year, because of the pandemic, it's been a lot more challenging, and the needs have gone up and the abilities have gone a little down, but we're doing our best. So any partnership here would have a tremendous impact, and it's very much appreciated.
Beautiful. Rabbi Danzinger, thank you so very much for joining us here tonight. We're so honored to have you. I know that you've been to Palm Beach a couple of times. We'd love to host you. Next time, I think I was leaving the airport when you were just arriving in the airport.
Yeah.
Something like that. In the good old days when we were still allowed to travel. But next time you come, give us some heads up. We'd love to have you.
I think it's time for you guys to come here, and that's it. Come here, go to St. Petersburg. You have here Luba could give you a tour of Lubavitch. You could get a tour of Belarus from, you could have the local tour guides. I'll cover Rostov.
Amazing. Rabbi Danzinger, thank you for you've been a wonderful inspiration to us. Keep up the amazing work. And we're so grateful for everything that you've done. If you want to make a closing comment, please, before we close the evening.
Closing comment is that, we're all Jews. We're all on the same, we're all headed the same direction. We all have to just stay focused. And I just want to say and end off with this, that, 100 years ago, when this was the capital of Chabad, someone asked the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe. He lived in the hardest of times. This is when the revolution took place, and the communists, and there was fighting, the whites and the reds. It was a very difficult time. And the Rebbe said one thing that to me, meant a lot. Someone asked the Rebbe, what is a chassid? And the Rebbe said a chassid is a lamplighter. And they said, what happens if, what's a lamplighter? In the olden days, you'd walk around with a stick, a torch, and they'd light the lamps in the street. So the Rebbe said a chassid is a lamplighter. And what does that mean? It means that you go out and you light lamps. And they asked the Rebbe, and how about if the lamps are in the sea? The Rebbe says you go out to the sea to light the lamps. And how about if they're in the desert? You go out to the desert to light the lamps. So in the message to us, if we're connected to Chabad, if we're connected to a shliach of the Rebbe, that means we're connected to the Rebbe. That means that we're all in some way or another chassidim in our messages, that we're lamplighters. And the good could be done everywhere we are, whether it's in Palm Beach or Rostov. And we should just do our part to light a few more lamps, the lamps in our families, lamps that surround us, because God puts us in certain circumstances so that we should have an impact. And I'm blessed to live here and be able to see the dear Jews here. And I'm sure people around you, you have people that could inspire you, and you could inspire, and the messages that we have to really do. Sometimes we think, should I say something? Should I not? Always say something. Always approach someone. Always be there to help someone, because that's what a lamplighter is supposed to do.
We all are lamplighters. It's not only the rabbis with the long black beards. It's not only the devoted Rebbitzins.
With the gray beards, my friends. In Palm Beach, they have a black beard. Come to Rostov, you'll get, people ask, Rabbi, you're aging. What's going on? They didn't see me since the pandemic. I said, guys, it's been a rough year. Just today, someone comes to me, I said, that's why I wear the mask. I got the vaccine. I got Sputnik vaccine, the Russian vaccine. It's in me yet. I have enough antibodies to share with your whole community. But I went today. I took off my mask finally. I'm safe. I got the vaccine the second I could, because I visit people, elderly people in their homes, and survivors, and always with a mask and careful. But at one point I said, God forbid, imagine if I go to someone's home and they're the only people, there's no one else there, and they need it. They call me, there's no one to talk to, they need some help, support, and something would happen. I said, I have to go. The second I became available, I did it. And so now that I take off my mask, I said, Rabbi, you took off your mask, what happened? I said, it must be the mask, it must be coloring on the mask or something. But yeah.
Rabbi Danzinger,
everyone's a lamplighter.
Behind every long white beard is a short black one. right? It starts with us, right? But every single one of us is a chassid. Every single one of us is a lamplighter. We all study Torah. We all study Tanya. And it's time for us to reinvent ourselves, like you said, to push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit, to help out another Jew in honor of the Rebbe's birthday today. It would be most appropriate to take upon yourself a little bit of time to think about what you've done so far and what you still can do to be able to make your impact upon this earth, to inspire, to illuminate, to light up, to be a lamplighter, and to make your purpose fulfilled. So thank you, Rabbi Danzinger. If anybody would like to support the cause, it's jewishrostov.com/donate. That's jewishrostov.com/donate. It's been such a pleasure to be here with everybody. I want to wish everybody a chag kosher v'sameach, a kosher and a joyous Yontiv, a meaningful Pesach, and may we all be united this year in Jerusalem with the coming of the Mashiach, the Paschal Lamb sacrifice out there in Jerusalem with Elijah the prophet, with Mashiach and all the righteous people from all the generations and today. May we all be united. No more sorrow, no more broken kitchens, no more broken walls, no more not running water, but all of us together with all of our needs, united, enlightened, conscious and aware of the presence of Hashem all around us. Thank you, Rabbi Danzinger. Such an honor to have you. Thank you.
Have a good night. Thank you. Great seeing you all. Nice meeting you all.